Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. My name is Mikey Best, and until last week, I was the undisputed prankster king of Oakmont College. My philosophy was simple: if it's funny to me, it's funny. If you can't take a joke, that's your problem, not mine. I saw sensitivity as a weakness, a flaw in the code of people who just didn't get it. My pranks were legendary, elaborate, and often, I'll admit, a little mean. But hey, that was the point. A prank without a little sting is just a bad joke. This whole nightmare started, as most disasters do, on a perfectly beautiful Tuesday, April 1st, my Super Bowl. I'd been planning my masterpiece for weeks, but the best pranks, the truly transcendent ones, are born of opportunity. As I was walking across the main quad, my eyes landed on the perfect target. Her name, I'd later learn, was April West. At the time. She was just that quiet girl from the library. She was sitting on a bench under the big oak tree, completely absorbed in a thick leather-bound book that looked older than the college itself. She was the picture of an easy mark, solitary, unassuming, and lost in her own world. It was almost too easy. My friends, Dylan and Cody, were with me. They saw the glint in my eye and knew exactly what was coming. "Dude, no," Dylan whispered, a grin already spreading across his face. "She looks so harmless." "Exactly," I said, pulling a large pressurized canister from my backpack. It was my latest creation, the Glittergeddon 5000, filled with an unholy amount of ultra-fine, iridescent pink glitter and a little bit of sticky, harmless party foam to make sure it really stuck around. Harmless people have the best reactions. I crept up behind her, moving like a hunter stalking its prey. The anticipation was electric, a familiar buzz that told me this was going to be good. I got within 10 feet, aimed the nozzle, and let it rip. A shimmering pink cloud erupted from the canister, engulfing her completely. It was beautiful, in a chaotic, destructive sort of way. The glitter settled over her like a magical frost, coating her dark hair, her glasses, her ancient-looking book, and the shoulders of her plain brown cardigan. For a moment, there was silence. Then Dylan and Cody burst into laughter, and I joined in, doubling over as I watched her blink, slowly looking down at her now sparkling hands. But she didn't scream, she didn't cry, she didn't even gasp. She slowly, deliberately, closed her book, marking her page with a glitter-coated finger. Then she turned her head and looked directly at me. Her eyes, magnified slightly by her glasses, weren't filled with tears or shock. They were filled with a cold, clear, calculating fury that sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. The smile froze on my face. She stood up, brushing a few specks of glitter from her sleeve with a calm, almost serene motion. She didn't say a word. She just held my gaze for a long, uncomfortable moment. I saw something flicker in her eyes, something ancient and unsettling. Then she simply turned and walked away, leaving a faint trail of pink sparkles in her wake. "Whoa," Cody said, the laughter dying in his throat. "That was weird." She didn't even flinch. I shrugged it off, forcing a laugh. Whatever. She's probably in shock. She'll be finding that stuff in her hair for a month. Epic, right? I tried to play it cool, but her reaction bothered me. It wasn't the reaction of a victim. It was the reaction of someone who had just been handed a weapon. I shook the feeling off. She was just some weird bookworm. What could she possibly do? I went about the rest of my day, pulling off a few more minor pranks and basking in the glory of being the campus clown prince. I didn't think about April West again. I should have. That night, in a dimly lit room off campus, April West sat on the floor surrounded by candles. In her hand, she held a single strand of my brown hair, collected from the bench where I'd stood laughing. She'd plucked it from the air. A tiny piece of me caught in the glittery fallout. She placed it in a small wooden bowl, added a few dried herbs and a drop of ink, and began to chant in a language that hadn't been spoken aloud for centuries. Her voice was low and steady, filled with the cold anger I had seen in her eyes. The curse she wove was simple, elegant, and perfectly tailored to me and the day I'd chosen to humiliate her. "By the prankster's own delight, turn his words from dark to light," she whispered, the candlelight flickering across her face. "Let the fool's own chosen phrase be the master of his days. From this dawn to fate's design, make his mockeries align. Every jest that follows the fool's decree shall reshape him, for all to see. For every laugh he stole today, a piece of him shall fade away." She finished with a final binding statement, her voice ringing with power in the small room. So mote it be, each and every word spoken after April Fool's shall become his unyielding, undeniable truth. The single strand of hair in the bowl dissolved into smoke. The curse was set, and I, sleeping soundly in my dorm room, had no idea that my entire world was about to be turned upside down by a single, stupid joke. I woke up the next morning feeling on top of the world. My roommate, Zach, was already up, rummaging through his closet. "Morning, man," he grunted, pulling on a t-shirt. "You really did a number on that girl yesterday. It's all over campus social media." I grinned. "Stretching? That's what I do. Man, go big or go home." I swung my legs out of bed, ready to grab my usual boxers and jeans from the floor. As I stood up, Zach glanced over and did a double take, a smirk playing on his lips. "Whoa, dude, getting in touch with your feminine side," he chuckled. I looked down at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" He pointed at my legs. "Nice panties. Bro, April Fools." He laughed and turned back to his closet. I just stood there, frozen. His words echoed in my head. Nice panties. Bro, April Fools. A strange tingling sensation, like a wave of static electricity, washed over my lower body for just a fraction of a second. It was so fast I barely registered it. I frowned, then looked down at myself. My heart stopped. Instead of my usual gray boxer briefs, I was wearing a pair of delicate, lacy, sky blue panties. They were silky and light, a stark, horrifying contrast to the familiar rough cotton I was used to. I reached down, my fingers trembling, and touched the fabric. It was real. The lace trim tickled my skin. A small satin bow was stitched right at the front. "What the hell?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. I frantically looked around. This had to be a prank. Zach must have swapped my underwear while I was sleeping. That had to be it. I ripped them off and threw them on the floor, my heart pounding in my chest. I stormed over to my dresser and yanked open the underwear drawer. My blood ran cold. It was full of them, dozens of pairs of women's underwear, lace thongs, silk bikinis, cotton briefs with cute patterns. Every single pair of my boxes was gone, replaced by this lingerie drawer from hell. "Zach, this isn't funny," I yelled, my voice cracking with panic. He turned around, looking genuinely confused. "What's not funny, dude? Are you okay?" "My underwear. You replaced all my underwear." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "I did what I just woke up 5 minutes ago. Maybe you're still dreaming." He wasn't lying. I could see it in his eyes. This wasn't him. But then, how I sank onto my bed, my head spinning, the tingling sensation, the words, April Fools. It couldn't be. It was impossible. A coincidence. It had to be a coincidence. Shaking, I grabbed the least offensive pair I could find, a simple, plain black cotton pair that looked almost like briefs, and pulled them on. The fabric was softer, thinner than I was used to. It felt wrong, alien. I quickly pulled on my jeans and a hoodie, trying to forget the feel of the soft cotton clinging to my skin. I decided to just ignore it. I'd go to class, act normal, and figure it out later. It was just a weird, elaborate prank someone was playing on me. That resolve lasted until I met my friend Kayla on the way to our morning lecture. "Mikey," she called out, jogging to catch up. She looked me up and down with a mischievous grin. You know, for a guy who's so obsessed with pranks, you could really use a little refinement. "You're all hairy and scruffy." She poked me in the arm. I could feel the light stubble on my forearm where I hadn't shaved in, well, ever. "You should totally get waxed or something." She giggled. "Imagine how smooth your skin would be, April Fools." The tingle. This time I felt it distinctly. It started at my scalp and cascaded down my entire body, a warm, buzzing wave that lasted for about 2 seconds. It felt like every single hair follicle on my body simultaneously went dormant. I instinctively reached up and touched my arm. Smooth, perfectly, unnaturally smooth. I frantically ran my hand over my other arm, my chest through my shirt, my legs through my jeans. Nothing, not a single hair. I rubbed my chin, expecting to feel my usual morning stubble. It was as smooth as a baby's skin. The hair on my head was still there, thank God. But everywhere else, it was gone. "Oh my God," I breathed, staring at Kayla in horror. She just laughed, oblivious. "See, you'd look great. Anyway, I gotta run. See you in class." She skipped off, leaving me standing in the middle of the path, my mind reeling. This wasn't a prank. This was something else. Something impossible. The panties, the hair, both times, right after someone said, "April Fools." My prank, the girl, April West. It was her. It had to be her. But how magic was this? Some kind of curse? The idea was insane. But the evidence was clinging to my body and sitting in my underwear drawer. I stumbled through the rest of the day in a daze, trying to avoid everyone I knew. I pulled my hoodie tighter, suddenly self-conscious of my freakishly smooth skin. The feel of my jeans against my hairless legs was strange, a frictionless sliding sensation that made me hyper-aware of my own body. But avoiding people on a college campus is impossible. At lunch, I was cornered by Dylan. "There he is, the legend," he shouted, slapping me on the back. He launched into a retelling of the glitter prank, exaggerating every detail. As he reached the climax, he let out his signature booming laugh. My laugh was similar, a loud, hearty laugh that I was pretty proud of. "Man, your laugh is so obnoxious," he said, still chuckling. "You should have a cute little giggle instead. April Fools." The tingle again, this time centered in my chest and throat. I tried to force a laugh to prove him wrong, to prove to myself that this wasn't real. But what came out wasn't my laugh. It was a light, airy, almost musical sound, a giggle, a girly giggle. The sound hung in the air. The entire table went silent. Cody stared at me, his fork halfway to his mouth. Dylan's eyes were wide. "What was that?" Dylan asked, bewildered. I clamped my hand over my mouth, my face burning with shame. I tried to speak, to say it was nothing, but I was too mortified. I just shook my head, grabbed my backpack, and fled the cafeteria, the sound of my own foreign giggle echoing in my ears. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of escalating horrors. Each encounter with a friend was like another nail in the coffin of my old self. Vanessa, a girl from my art class, caught me near the library. "Mikey, you're built like a linebacker. You have no curves at all. You should have a cute, slender little figure with a tiny waist and some hips. April Fools." A powerful, wrenching tingle shot through my torso. I felt a bizarre pulling and shifting sensation under my clothes. My broad shoulders seemed to narrow, my waist cinched inward, and my hips flared out slightly. My hoodie and jeans, once a comfortable fit, suddenly felt baggy in some places and tight in others. I felt lighter, more delicate. The change was subtle enough that no one would notice under my bulky clothes. But I could feel it. I could feel the new, gentle curve of my waist, the slight sway in my hips as I walked. It was sickening. Later, Cody and Emily found me hiding out in the student lounge. They'd clearly been talking about my weird behavior. "Dude, you're acting so strange today," Cody said. "It's like you're losing your manhood or something." April Fools. A cold, deep tingle settled in my groin. I felt a profound sense of loss, a hollowing out feeling that made my knees weak. I didn't dare check, but I knew something fundamental was gone. Emily, trying to lighten the mood, added, "Yeah, you're practically turning into a girl, April Fools." The hollowing feeling was immediately replaced by a new complex construction, a sense of internal completeness that was utterly alien. I felt a shift deep inside me, a rewriting of my own biology. Austin from the campus radio station cornered me next. "Man, your voice is getting all squeaky. You need a nice, soft, sultry voice to go with that new laugh." April Fools, my vocal cords tingled, and when I tried to protest, what came out was a smooth melodic alto. "Stop it," I said, but the words sounded like a gentle plea, not a demand. The final blow of the day came from Megan, one of Kayla's friends. She saw me rushing toward my dorm, my face a mask of terror. "Mikey, you look awful. Your hair is a mess and you look so pale. You need some long, beautiful blonde hair and a little makeup to bring some color to your face." April Fools. A tingling sensation erupted on my scalp. I felt my short brown hair growing at an impossible rate, cascading down my back. I reached up and my fingers tangled in thick, silky strands that fell past my shoulders. At the same time, I felt a feather-light sensation on my face, like invisible brushes applying foundation, mascara, and a touch of pink lipstick. I didn't wait for her reaction. I bolted, my new long blonde hair flying behind me. I burst into my dorm room, slammed the door, and locked it. I stumbled to the full-length mirror on the back of the door and stared at my reflection, my heart hammering against my ribs. The person staring back wasn't me. It was a stranger, a girl with a slender, curvy figure, perfectly smooth skin, and a face that was somehow still mine but softer, more delicate, framed by a cascade of golden blonde hair. Her lips were pink, her eyelashes long and dark. I was trapped in a funhouse mirror, except the reflection was real. I was the distortion. I let out a choked sob, but even that sounded wrong. A soft, feminine whimper. The prankster had become the prank. And the joke, I was starting to realize, was entirely on me. I spent the next hour pacing my room like a caged animal, my hands tangled in my ridiculously long new hair. Every time I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, a fresh wave of panic washed over me. This couldn't be happening. It was a nightmare, a hallucination. I splashed water on my face, but the perfectly applied, waterproof mascara didn't even smudge. I pinched my arm, but the smooth, hairless skin just registered the pain. My phone buzzed relentlessly. A group chat with Dylan, Cody, Kayla, and the rest of my friends was blowing up. Dylan, anyone seen Mikey? He totally freaked at lunch. Kayla, he ran away from me this morning too. Something's up, Cody. He's not answering his phone. We should check on him. I ignored them. They were the cause of this. Every careless April Fool's from their lips had been another chisel stroke, carving away at me, turning me into this thing. Then, a knock on the door. Mikey, it's us. Open up, man. Go away, I yelled, but my voice came out as a soft, pleading alto. It didn't sound threatening at all. Dude, you sound weird, Cody's voice said through the door. We're worried. Let us in. Before I could protest again, I heard the telltale click of Zach's spare key in the lock. He must have given it to them. The door swung open, and my 5 closest friends piled into the room. They all froze in the doorway, their eyes wide as they stared at me. For a moment, nobody spoke. They were looking at a stranger, a pretty blonde girl in a baggy hoodie and jeans, standing in the middle of Mikey Best's bedroom. Kayla was the first to find her voice. Sorry, we're looking for Mikey. Is he here? I opened my mouth to explain, to scream, to tell them what they had done to me. But all that came out was a choked sob. Recognition dawned on Dylan's face first. He looked from my terrified, blue eyes, my eyes, to the familiar hoodie I was swimming in. His jaw dropped. No way, Mikey. The name felt like a punch to the gut. I nodded miserably, tears welling up and threatening to ruin my magical makeup. They all stared, speechless. They looked at my long hair, my smooth face, the gentle curves of my body visible even under the bulky clothes. They were finally seeing the results of their handiwork. This is because of us, isn't it? Vanessa whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. The April Fool's jokes. They've all been coming true. I nodded again, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. A strange look passed between them, not just shock, but something else. Guilt, maybe, but also a weird, nervous excitement. Guys, Austin said, pulling out his phone, you're not going to believe this. Karma just sent a new message to the group. Karma, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Cody showed me his phone screen. It was a private group chat I wasn't in. The admin's name was simply Karma. The messages were a series of instructions. Karma, is he with you now, Dylan? Yeah, it's real. He's a girl. Karma, I know, but the job isn't finished. He humiliated someone. Now he needs to understand what that feels like. It's time for the grand finale. You know what to do. Below that was a checklist, a list of final touches that made my stomach turn to ice. What is this? I asked, backing away from them. You've been doing this on purpose. We didn't know it was real, Kayla insisted, though she wouldn't meet my eyes. We just thought it was a coordinated prank. This Karma person contacted us yesterday, said they wanted to get you back for being such a jerk on April Fool's Day. We were supposed to hit you with all these jokes to freak you out. We had no idea it would actually happen. It was a mass betrayal. They had been guided, orchestrated. This wasn't a series of random coincidences. It was a targeted, systematic assault, and leading them all was this mysterious Karma. It had to be April West. So, what now? I asked, my voice trembling. Are you going to help me? Help me fix this? They exchanged another look. This one was full of pity and a strange, undeniable sense of morbid curiosity. The message says, this is the only way to, complete the process. Dylan said awkwardly. Maybe if we finish the list, the curse will break. It was the dumbest logic I'd ever heard, but I was desperate, and I was surrounded. Emily stepped forward, a sympathetic but determined look on her face. Okay, Mikey, just don't freak out. The list says you're still a little flat. She took a deep breath. You should have a real chest, not just some baggy hoodie. April Fools. A sharp, intense tingle spread across my chest. I felt a sudden weight, a pulling sensation as my pectoral muscles seemed to melt away and reform into something else entirely. Two soft, round mounds blossomed against the fabric of my t-shirt. I gasped, stumbling backward and clutching my chest. It wasn't an illusion. They were real. They were heavy. They were mine. Before I could even process it, Cody chimed in, a nervous grin on his face, and, they should be, really noticeable, like impossible to ignore. April Fools. The weight on my chest intensified, growing until my t-shirt strained against them. They were generous, more than generous. They were prominent, perfectly shaped, and utterly impossible to hide. My center of gravity had shifted. I felt top-heavy and unbalanced. Vanessa, a makeup artist for the college theater, stepped up next. And that face, the magic makeup is good, but it needs a professional touch. And your nails are still short and raggedy. She waved her hand. You need a full glamorous makeover with perfect smoky eyes and long glossy red nails. April Fools. I felt the makeup on my face darken and blend, my eyes becoming more dramatic, my lips a deeper shade of red. At the same time, a strange pressure built under my fingernails. I watched in horror as they grew, extending past my fingertips, hardening and shaping themselves into elegant, almond-shaped nails, a coat of flawless crimson polish shimmering on their surface. I held up my hands, staring at the foreign, feminine appendages. I tried to make a fist, but the long nails felt awkward and clumsy. Dylan, getting into the spirit of it now, pointed at my closet. And you can't keep hiding in those baggy boy clothes. Your whole wardrobe should be full of cute, trendy girl clothes, crop tops, short skirts, skinny jeans, high heels, the works. April Fools. I heard a faint shimmering sound from my closet. I didn't need to look. I knew all my comfortable hoodies, my worn-in jeans, my simple t-shirts were gone, replaced by a wardrobe I wouldn't even know how to wear. Megan delivered the next blow, the one that truly shattered me. And nobody is going to call you Mikey anymore. You don't look like a Mikey. You look like a Missy. Yeah, that's your name now. Missy? April Fools. The tingle was different this time. It wasn't in my body, but in my mind. It was a subtle click, a recategorization. The name Mikey suddenly felt distant, like a nickname I'd outgrown. The name Missy, on the other hand, resonated with a horrifying sense of rightness. Finally, Austin stepped forward to complete the Valley Girl transformation. And you shouldn't talk like your old self. You should totally talk like, a Valley Girl, full of likes and totallys and up-talk April Fools. A final tingle zapped my brain. A whole new set of speech patterns and inflections flooded my mind. The urge to end every sentence like a question was, totally overwhelming. Missy sank onto the edge of my bed, my new body feeling alien and strange. My friends, my tormentors, stood around me, their work complete. I ran a trembling hand with its long red nails through my flowing blonde hair. I looked down at my chest, which strained the fabric of my old t-shirt, and at the baggy jeans that did nothing to hide my new curves. I was a living doll, assembled piece by piece by their cruel jokes. The reflection in the mirror showed a complete stranger. A pretty popular-looking girl who looked like she should be planning a sorority formal, not having a complete identity crisis. So, Dylan said, breaking the silence, do you feel any different? Is the curse broken? I looked up at them, my vision blurred by tears. I tried to say, you idiots, you just made it permanent. But what came out was, oh my God, you guys, what did you totally just do to me? My voice was a breathy, slightly panicked soprano. ending on a perfect, questioning inflection. I was no longer Mikey Best. I was, in every conceivable way, Missy. They left soon after that. The awkwardness in the room had become a tangible thing, thick and suffocating. They'd offered a few weak apologies, saying they never thought it would go this far, but their eyes were full of a morbid fascination. They were looking at their creation. My new name, Missy, felt strange and foreign on their tongues, but they used it, sealing the change. Once the door clicked shut, I was alone with the stranger in the mirror. The silence of the room was deafening, broken only by my own soft, unfamiliar breathing. There was one last thread of hope I clung to, a belief born from fairy tales and late-night movies. Curses have loopholes. They have expiration dates. This was all tied to April Fool's Day. It had to be. The magic, or whatever this was, would surely wear off when the day was officially over. At the stroke of midnight, the spell would break, and I'd be Mikey again. I had to believe it. It was the only thing keeping me from shattering into a million pieces. I looked at the digital clock on my bedside table. 10:47 p.m., just over an hour to go. I spent that hour in a state of suspended agony. I didn't dare move too much. Every small motion was a reminder of the changes. When I walked, my hips swayed in a way they never had before. When I crossed my arms, they rested awkwardly above the swell of my new chest. The long hair kept falling into my face, and the scent of whatever magical shampoo had been used filled my senses, something light and floral, like cherry blossoms. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Each one felt like an eternity. I sat on my bed, knees pulled up to my chest, and watched the numbers on the clock change. 11 p.m., 11:15 p.m., 11:30 p.m. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Please let this end. Please let this just be a horrible, twisted dream. 11:45 p.m. I started to count down the seconds. My breath held tight in my chest. I stared at my hands, at the long red nails that looked so impossibly elegant and so completely wrong. I could almost feel the phantom sensation of my old, short, blunt nails. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying to any god that might be listening. I pictured my old self, my short hair, my broad shoulders, my flat chest. I tried to will my body to remember, to revert back to its factory settings. 11:59 p.m. My whole body was tense, braced for the magical wave that would wash over me and set everything right. I counted down from 60 in my head. 10, 9, 8. My eyes were fixed on the clock. 7, 6, 5. My breath hitched. 4, 3, 2, 1. The clock flipped from 11:59 p.m. to 12:00 a.m. I waited and waited. Nothing. Not a tingle. Not a shift. Not a single spark of reversing magic. The silence in the room stretched on, heavy and absolute. I slowly opened my eyes and looked down at myself. The prominent chest was still there. I held up my hands. The red nails still gleamed in the dim light. I reached up and touched my hair. It was still long and blonde and silky. A strangled sob escaped my lips. It was over. Midnight had come and gone. And I was still this. I was still Missy. The last thread of my hope snapped. I fell back against the pillows and finally let myself break. I cried. I cried harder than I ever had in my life, my body shaking with deep, gut-wrenching sobs. The sounds were all wrong, high-pitched and delicate, but the pain was real. It was the raw, unfiltered grief of losing myself. In the reflection of my dark phone screen, I saw her, a beautiful, heartbroken girl with mascara running down her perfectly sculpted cheeks. My reflection was crying with me. I don't know how long I cried, but eventually, the tears ran out, leaving me hollow and exhausted. I fell into a fitful sleep, still fully dressed in my old, now ill-fitting, clothes. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through the window for a blissful, groggy second. I forgot. I felt the familiar weight of the blankets, the morning light on my face, and thought it was all just a nightmare. Then I moved. The first thing I registered was the weight on my chest. The second was the curtain of blonde hair falling across my face. The nightmare was real. It was my life now. A grim sense of resignation washed over me. I couldn't stay in my room forever. Zach would be back from his weekend trip soon. I had classes. I had to face the world. But I couldn't do it in this baggy, stretched-out hoodie. I looked ridiculous. With a heavy heart, I pushed myself off the bed and walked to the closet. Dylan's final joke, my entire wardrobe, transformed. I slid the door open, my hand trembling. It was exactly as he'd described. Gone were my jeans and hoodies. The closet was now a kaleidoscope of colors and fabrics I didn't even recognize. There were rows of crop tops, delicate blouses, and tight-fitting sweaters, racks of miniskirts, leggings, and skinny jeans so tight they looked painted on. And on the floor, an army of shoes, ballet flats, strappy sandals, and a terrifying collection of high heels. There wasn't a single item of boys' clothing left. My choice wasn't about what I wanted to wear. It was about what would be the least humiliating. I scanned the options, my mind reeling. A skirt. No way, not yet. I couldn't handle the feeling of open air on my legs. My eyes landed on a pair of dark wash, high-waisted skinny jeans. They seemed like the safest bet. I pulled them out, the denim soft and stretchy. Then I looked for a top. Everything seemed so small, so revealing. I finally settled on a simple, long-sleeved, black scoop neck top. It looked like it would offer the most coverage. Getting dressed was a new kind of ordeal. I stripped off my old clothes, avoiding my reflection in the mirror. First, the underwear. I chose a simple pair of white cotton panties from the drawer, the fabric soft and light. Then came the bra. I'd never even held one before. It was a black, underwire contraption with a series of tiny hooks and eyes on the back. It took me a full 5 minutes of fumbling and twisting to figure out how to clasp it behind my back. The feeling of the straps digging into my shoulders and the underwire pressing against my ribs was constricting, a constant reminder of the unwelcome additions to my chest. Then, the jeans. I had to lie on the bed to zip them up. They were skin-tight, hugging every new curve of my hips and thighs, clinging to my legs like a second skin. They ended just above my ankles, exposing a part of my leg I'd never thought about before. When I stood up and looked in the mirror, I had to admit, they fit perfectly. They made my legs look long and slender. Finally, the top. It slid on easily, the soft fabric clinging to my torso and showcasing my new, narrow waist. The scoop neck dipped lower than I was comfortable with, revealing a hint of cleavage that made my face flush. I was dressed. I was wearing a full outfit of women's clothing. And the most terrifying part, it didn't look like a costume. The clothes fit my new body as if they were made for it. I looked natural. I stared at the girl in the mirror. Missy. She was tall and slim, with curves in all the right places. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Her face, even without the magical evening makeup, was pretty, with high cheekbones and large, sad eyes. A strange thought wormed its way into my brain, unbidden and unwelcome. You're pretty. I shook my head, disgusted with myself. This wasn't me. This was a prison made of flesh and bone and perfectly fitting skinny jeans, but it was a prison I now had to learn to live in. I spent the next hour just existing. I tried to walk around the room. My balance was off. My movements felt too graceful. I sat at my desk, but the way I had to arrange my new longer legs felt awkward. I picked up a pencil, and my long red nails clicked against the wood. Every single action was a reminder that the body I had known for my entire life was gone. A wave of anger washed over me, anger at my friends for their betrayal, at myself for being so cruel, and most of all, at April West. This was all her fault. She had done this to me, and then vanished. Was she watching somewhere, laughing at my misery? As if summoned by my thoughts, I heard a soft swoosh from the mail slot in our dorm room door. An envelope had been slipped underneath. My heart pounded, cautiously. I walked over and picked it up. It was a simple white envelope with no name on it. I tore it open. Inside was a single piece of folded paper. My hand shook as I unfolded it. The note was written in neat, elegant cursive. They say laughter is the best medicine. You certainly seem to subscribe to that theory. You love to laugh at others, at their pain, their surprise, their humiliation. You thought it was harmless, that it made you powerful. You built your whole identity on being the one who gets the last laugh. So here it is, your last laugh. Now you get to be the joke. Every day when you look in the mirror, every time someone calls you Missy, every time you have to struggle with a bra clasp or walk in heels, I want you to remember the girl in the quad covered in glitter. I want you to remember how it feels to be the punchline. You used to laugh at other people's expense. Now go on. Missy, laugh at your own. Karma's a bitch. April Fools. The words blurred through my tears. So that was it, confirmation. It wasn't a dream, and it wasn't temporary. This was my new reality, my punishment, crafted and delivered by the quiet girl I had decided to make my target. The name on the group chat wasn't a coincidence. Karma. April West was karma. There was a finality to the note that extinguished the last embers of hope in my chest. This wasn't something to be fixed. This was something to be survived. I was still standing there, the note clutched in my hand, when I heard a key in the lock. Zach. He was back. Panic seized me. My roommate, the guy I'd shared this tiny room with for a year, was about to walk in and find a strange girl standing in his room wearing tight jeans and a full face of makeup. How was I going to explain this? What could I possibly say? The door swung open, and Zach walked in, hauling his duffel bag. Man, what a weekend, he said, talking to the empty space where he expected me to be. He dropped his bag and finally looked up. He stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes widened, and he just stared at me. He scanned me from head to toe, the long blonde hair, the feminine face, the curves, the clothes. There was no recognition in his eyes, none. He wasn't seeing Mikey in a costume. He was seeing a complete stranger, a girl. Hey, he stammered, a blush creeping up his neck. Sorry, I think I have the wrong room. He started to back out, fumbling with the doorknob. No, wait, I said, my voice coming out higher and more panicked than I intended. This is the right room. He paused, his brow furrowed in confusion. Is Mikey here? Are you a friend of his? This was it, the moment of truth. My old life, my identity as Mikey, was standing right in front of me in the form of my best friend. And he couldn't see me. I could try to explain, to tell him the whole insane story. But looking at the bewildered, slightly intrigued expression on his face, I knew he would never believe me. He'd think I was crazy, or worse. He'd think this girl had done something to his roommate. The name Megan had given me popped into my head, feeling sickeningly appropriate. I had to let Mikey go. He was gone. I took a shaky breath and tried to channel the Valley Girl persona that had been forced upon me. No. Mikey's not here right now, I said, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind my ear, a gesture that felt bizarrely natural. He, had to leave. For a while. He asked me to. Watch his stuff. It was a flimsy lie, but it was the only thing my panicked brain could come up with. Zach relaxed slightly, though he still looked confused. Oh, okay. He didn't mention anyone coming over. He stepped fully into the room, his eyes lingering on me for a moment too long. He wasn't looking at a friend. He was looking at a girl. And it was a look I'd seen guys give girls 1,000 times, but had never, ever been on the receiving end of. It was a mixture of curiosity and appraisal. It made my skin crawl and my face flush with a heat I'd never felt before. I'm Zach, by the way, he said, extending a hand. I stared at his hand for a second before realizing I was supposed to shake it. My long nails felt strange against his palm. I'm Missy, I said, the name feeling like ash in my mouth. Missy, he repeated, a slow smile spreading across his face. That's a pretty name. So, you're staying here for a bit. I guess I squeaked, my voice going up an octave. It's like a long story, totally complicated. Right, he nodded, still smiling. Well, welcome, I guess. Make yourself at home. He finally turned away, starting to unpack his bag, and I could finally breathe. He believed me. He had no idea who I was. Mikey Best, his roommate, his friend, had been completely and utterly erased, replaced by a girl named Missy. I stood there, frozen in the middle of the room that was once half mine, and now felt like I was trespassing in. The irony of it all was crushing. I, the great prankster, had become the ultimate prank, a living, breathing joke. My entire existence was a punchline delivered by a girl I'd wronged. And as Zach snuck another curious glance at me when he thought I wasn't looking, a new terrifying thought emerged. The curse had taken everything from me: my name, my body, my identity. But it had also given me something. This new form, this Missy, was getting attention that Mikey never had. It wasn't the mocking laughter I was used to orchestrating. It was something else entirely, something quieter, more complicated, and in its own way, infinitely more terrifying. My new life had begun, and I had no idea how I was going to survive it. The next morning, I woke up to the horrifying realization that I had to go to class. Hiding in my room was one thing. Facing the entire student body of Oakmont College was another. The rumor mill here moved faster than light, and after my bizarre behavior and sudden disappearance, people were already talking. What would they say when a girl who looked suspiciously like a softer, prettier version of me started showing up to Mikey Best's classes and sitting in his assigned seat? "You, heading to Psych 101, Zach asked from his side of the room. He was trying to be casual, but I could feel his eyes on me. He was still trying to figure me out. Yeah, totally," I replied, my voice doing that annoying upward inflection at the end. "Gotta, keep up with the work, you know." Cool, me too." An awkward silence hung between us. "So, are you also a psych major?" he asked, clearly trying to make sense of why I would be going to Mikey's specific lecture. "Something like that," I mumbled, grabbing a backpack that had, to my dismay, been transformed from my sturdy black canvas bag into a stylish tan faux leather one. The final, most dreaded part of my new morning routine was the shoes. My sneakers were gone. My boots were gone. I was left with the collection on the closet floor. My eyes scanned the terrifying array of heels and wedges. There was no way I could manage those. My gaze fell on a simple pair of black ballet flats. They seemed like the safest, least intrusive option. I slipped them on. They were snug, and the thin soles made me feel oddly connected to the floor. They were, I hated to admit, comfortable. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I followed Zach out the door. The hallway of the dorm felt like a mile-long catwalk. A few guys who were usually my friends were loitering by the lounge. As Zach and I walked past, their conversation died. All eyes went to me. "Whoa, Zach, who's your friend, one of them? A guy named Ben," called out. Zach flushed slightly. "This is Missy. She's, staying with us for a bit." "Hey, Missy," Ben said, his voice dropping an octave. He gave me a slow, appreciative smile that made me want to punch him. A week ago, he would have just slapped me on the back and made a crude joke. Now, he was looking at me like I was a menu item. "Hi," I mumbled, keeping my eyes fixed on the floor and hurrying past. Their gazes felt like physical things, crawling all over my back. This was my new reality. I was no longer one of the guys. I was a girl, and to them, that meant I was something to be looked at, evaluated, and approached. The walk across campus was even worse. Every head seemed to turn as I passed. Whispers followed me like a cloud of insects. "Is that a new student? Wow, she's gorgeous. I think she's in my English class. I've never seen her before." No one recognized me. Not a single person. To them, Mikey Best had simply vanished, and this new, pretty blonde had appeared in his place. It was like I was a ghost haunting my own life. When we finally got to the lecture hall, I hesitated at the door. I usually sat in the back with my friends, but walking in and sitting there now felt like an admission of something I wasn't ready to make. Zach seemed to sense my hesitation. "You good?" "Yeah, totally," I lied, just figuring out where to sit. I ended up choosing a seat in the middle of the hall, away from anyone I knew. I sank into the chair, trying to make myself as small as possible, pulling my leather backpack onto my lap like a shield. I could feel people staring. I risked a glance toward the back row and saw Dylan and Cody. They were watching me, their expressions a mixture of guilt and awe. They knew, but they said nothing, just turned away when I caught their eye. The professor started the lecture, and I tried to focus, but it was impossible. My mind was a chaotic storm of sensation and anxiety. The ballet flats felt too thin, the skinny jeans felt too tight, the scoop neck shirt felt too revealing. I was hyper-aware of the guy sitting next to me, a nerdy kid I barely knew named Leo. He kept sneaking glances at me, a nervous blush on his cheeks. Halfway through the class, my pen ran out of ink. I muttered a curse under my breath, or tried to. What came out was, "Oh my God, that is, so annoying." Leo, hearing me, immediately perked up. Here," he said, pushing a pen across the desk toward me. "You can use mine." "Oh, thanks," I said, surprised by the small kindness. "No problem," he whispered, his eyes bright. "I'm Leo, by the way." "Missy," I replied automatically. "That's a beautiful name," he said, before quickly turning back to his notes, his face bright red. The interaction was so small, so simple, but it shook me to my core. No one, especially not a nerdy kid like Leo, had ever been that earnestly, nervously nice to Mikey Best. Mikey Best commanded respect through fear and humor. People laughed with him or at his victims. They didn't offer him pens with shy smiles. This girl, Missy, was different. People were nice to her. Guys held doors open for me on the way out of the lecture hall. A girl I didn't know complimented my hair. It was a completely different social landscape, and I had no idea how to navigate it. I was used to being the one in control, the one setting the tone. Now, I was just reacting, fumbling my way through interactions that felt scripted from a movie I'd never seen. The rest of the day was a series of similar, jarring experiences in the cafeteria. I couldn't bring myself to sit with my old friends. I got my food and found a small, empty table in a corner. A few minutes later, Kayla and Vanessa approached my table, trays in hand. "Can we, sit here?" Kayla asked, her voice soft. I just shrugged. They sat down, and for a minute, we just pushed food around our plates in silence. "So, how are you?" Vanessa finally asked. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell. "How do you think I am? You helped turn me into this." But the new speech patterns, the softer voice, they sanded the edges off my anger. I'm, totally freaking out. "Vanessa," I said, the words sounding more like a complaint than an accusation. "This is a complete disaster." "We're so sorry, my Missy," Kayla said, stumbling over the name. "We never, ever thought this would happen. Karma, or April, or whoever, she played us. She made us a part of it." "You didn't have to go along with it," I muttered, stabbing a piece of lettuce with my fork. "We know," Vanessa said, her eyes full of genuine remorse. "And we're going to help you, whatever you need. Clothes, makeup tips, how to, deal with stuff. We're here." The offer was so absurd it was almost funny. The people who had helped orchestrate my transformation were now offering to teach me how to live with it. But as I looked at their worried faces, I realized they were my only link to my old life. They were the only ones who knew the truth. As much as I hated them for what they'd done, I was also desperately lonely. "I don't even know how to walk in heels," I admitted, the confession feeling like a monumental defeat. A small, sad smile touched Vanessa's lips. "We can teach you," she said gently. "We'll start tonight." And so began the next, even more surreal chapter of my new life girlhood boot camp. Taught by my own tormentors, that night, in their dorm room, they taught me how to walk in a pair of low heels, how to apply makeup so I didn't look like a clown, and which shampoo was best for color-treated blonde hair. It was a bizarre, painful, and strangely intimate experience. I was their project, their penance. As I teetered around their room in a pair of 2-inch heels, my ankles wobbling, I felt a confusing mix of emotions. I was humiliated. I was angry. But underneath it all, a tiny insidious part of me was intrigued. I was learning a secret language, a set of skills I'd never even known existed. And as I caught my reflection in their mirror, a tall, graceful blonde who looked increasingly confident with each step, the line between Mikey and Missy began, just for a second, to blur. The next few weeks were a disorienting blend of survival and education. Days were spent navigating the social minefield of being Missy, while nights were often spent with Kayla and Vanessa, who had taken it upon themselves to be my reluctant fairy godmothers. They taught me the basics, the unwritten rules of femininity that I had been completely oblivious to my entire life. The lessons were as practical as they were mortifying. There was Bra Shopping 101, which involved a clandestine trip to a department store in a neighboring town where no one would recognize me. I stood awkwardly in the lingerie section, feeling like a spy in enemy territory, while Vanessa expertly picked out different styles and sizes. The fitting room experience was a new level of humiliation. trying to figure out clasps and straps under the fluorescent lights, with Kayla calling out advice from the other side of the door. I walked out with a bag full of underwear that cost more than all my old clothes combined, feeling both violated and strangely prepared. Then there was the makeup tutorial. Vanessa sat me down in front of her brightly lit vanity mirror and laid out an arsenal of brushes, palettes, and tubes. "Okay," she'd said, her tone all business. "The magic curse makeup is great for a baseline, but you need to know how to do this yourself. What if you cry it off or want to change your look?" She walked me through it step by step, from foundation to eyeliner. My big, clumsy hands felt useless trying to wield the tiny brushes. My first attempt at a winged eyeliner looked more like a drunken smudge, but they were patient. They showed me how to hold the brushes, how to blend, how to find the right colors for my new complexion. "See," Vanessa said, after finally helping me fix my mistakes, "you just have to, highlight your best features." She gestured to my reflection. "And you got good ones. Great eyes, good cheekbones." I stared at the girl in the mirror. It was true. The makeup, applied correctly, made my blue eyes pop and gave my face a warmth it hadn't had before. I still saw the ghost of Mikey in the shape of my jaw, but he was fading, receding with every new skill I learned. Missy was the one looking back at me now, and she was objectively pretty. The thought was still unsettling, but it was becoming harder to deny. The most challenging lesson, by far, was walking in heels. We started with low, chunky heels and practiced in the dorm's empty common room late at night. My first few steps were a disaster of wobbly ankles and flailing arms. "You're walking like you're trying to kill spiders," Kayla had laughed, though her tone was kind. "Heel, then toe. Small steps. Swing your hips. Don't stomp. Slowly, painstakingly." I learned to shift my balance, to move with a grace I never knew I possessed. The sway of my hips, which had initially felt so alien, started to feel more natural, a necessary part of the new mechanics of my body. One night, I finally managed a smooth, confident walk across the entire room in a pair of 3-inch stilettos. Kayla and Vanessa cheered as if I just won a marathon. I couldn't help but crack a small smile. It felt like a genuine accomplishment, a small victory in this unwinnable war. During the day, my life was a different kind of lesson. I was learning what it meant to move through the world as a woman. Men, who had once been my peers, now treated me differently. They either talked down to me, assuming I was clueless, or they flirted with an unsubtle persistence that made me deeply uncomfortable. Strangers would tell me to smile more. My opinions in class were often overlooked in favor of a male student's, even when I knew the material better. It was infuriating. As Mikey, I had never noticed these things. I had moved through the world with an invisible shield of male privilege. Now, that shield was gone, and I was seeing the world from the other side. It was a harsh, infuriating, and deeply eye-opening education. My relationship with Zach had settled into a strange, new normal. He was a perfect gentleman, always on his best behavior. He'd knock on the bathroom door, even if he knew I was in there. He'd ask about my day. He was trying, in his own way, to be a good roommate to this strange girl who had suddenly appeared in his life. But the old, easy camaraderie was gone. We couldn't just hang out and play video games or complain about professors. There was a new tension in the room, a low-level hum of unspoken attraction on his part and deep-seated anxiety on mine. One evening, I came back to the room to find him struggling with a knot in his shoelace. "Stupid thing," he muttered, yanking at it. Without thinking, I knelt down. "Here, let me see." My long, slender fingers, now nimble from weeks of practice with makeup brushes and bra clasps, went to work on the knot. The red nails, which I now kept perfectly manicured, made it easy to pick apart the tangled lace. A few seconds later, it was free. "Whoa," he said, looking from the untangled lace to my hands. "Thanks. Missy, you're good at that." "It's, no big deal," I replied, my voice soft. He looked at me, a genuine, warm smile on his face. "You know, you're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" I asked, my heart doing a nervous little flutter. "I don't know. When Mikey said he had a friend coming to stay, I guess I just didn't expect someone so nice and quiet." He shook his head. "You're nothing like his other friends." The compliment felt like a stab wound. He was praising Missy for being everything Mikey wasn't. Later that night, after Zach was asleep, I stood in front of the full-length mirror, wearing only a simple tank top and a pair of sleep shorts. The clothes belonged to Missy, but tonight I was searching for Mikey. I looked closer, past the flowing blonde hair and the soft curves. I looked into my own eyes. They were still the same shade of blue. The shape of my nose, the line of my jaw, they were fainter now, softened and feminized, but the underlying structure was still mine. Mikey was still in there, somewhere. But the longer I looked, the more he seemed to fade. The reflection became more solid, more real. Missy wasn't just a costume anymore. She was the one living this life. She was the one going to class, making new, tentative friendships and learning how to navigate the world. She was the one who had earned Leo's shy smile and Zach's gentle respect. I reached up and touched my face, my fingertips tracing the curve of my cheek. The skin was soft. The person staring back at me was a stranger, and yet, she was also me. The anger and the panic were still there, simmering beneath the surface, but they were joined by something new, a weary, grudging acceptance. This was my life now. This body, this name, this strange new existence. I could spend the rest of my days fighting it, grieving a life I could never get back, or I could try to live it. I took a deep breath, my reflection doing the same, for the first time. I didn't just see the curse, I saw a person who was scared and confused, but also resilient, a person who was learning, adapting, and surviving. For the first time, I looked into the eyes of Missy and didn't completely hate what I saw. Months bled into a whole semester. The vibrant greens of the campus gave way to the fiery oranges of autumn, and with the changing seasons, something inside me was changing too. The constant high-pitched scream of panic in my head had subsided into a low, manageable hum of anxiety. Missy was no longer a role I was forced to play. She was becoming my default setting. I had found a rhythm. I knew which heels were comfortable enough for a full day of classes. I had mastered a 5-minute makeup routine. My Valley Girl accent had softened into something more natural, a hybrid of my old speech patterns and the new ones forced upon me. I still said, like, and totally more than I wanted to, but it no longer felt like a script. My friendships had shifted. My old guy friends still treated me with a weird mix of guilt and distance, but a new circle was forming. Kayla and Vanessa were now my genuine confidants. We studied together, ate lunch together, and complained about boys together, a topic that always left me with a strange, conflicted feeling in the pit of my stomach. Through them, I met other girls. I was slowly, cautiously, being absorbed into a world I had only ever observed from the outside. One crisp October afternoon, I was sitting on the same bench where this all began, the one under the big oak tree. I was reading a textbook, not an ancient leather-bound tome, but the parallel was not lost on me. I had come full circle. Mind if I join you? I looked up. It was April West. My blood ran cold. I hadn't seen her up close since that day. She looked exactly the same plain brown cardigan, glasses, and an inscrutable expression. She wasn't carrying a book this time. I just stared at her, my mouth suddenly dry. All the anger, all the resentment I had been suppressing for months, came bubbling to the surface. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She didn't seem fazed. She simply sat on the other end of the bench. "I saw you sitting here." I was curious. Curious about what I snapped. Curious to see how your little science experiment is holding up. Well, congratulations. You won. You ruined my life. Are you happy now? April was silent for a long moment, just watching me. Her gaze was unnervingly calm. "Is it ruined?" she asked quietly. "Or is it just different?" "Different," I let out a laugh, but it was the airy, light sound of Missy's laugh, devoid of any real humor. I wake up in a body that isn't mine. I have a name that isn't mine. I'm treated like a completely different person. Yeah, I'd say that's a little more than different. "And how are you treated?" she pressed, her voice gentle. "Do people still throw things at you for their own amusement? Do they laugh at your expense, or do they hold doors for you? Do they offer you their pens? Do they value your presence?" Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. She'd been watching. She knew about Leo. She knew about all of it. "You don't know anything," I muttered. But my protest was weak. I know what Mikey Best was, she said, her voice turning cold again, echoing the fury I'd seen on that first day. He was a bully who hid behind the word prank. He fed on the humiliation of others because it made him feel big. He was careless and cruel, and he never once thought about the consequences. She paused, letting the words hang in the air between us. Missy. On the other hand, she's thoughtful. She's learned what it's like to be vulnerable. She's learned to listen. People don't fear her, they like her. Zach doesn't see her as a joke. He respects her. Your friends don't enable your cruelty anymore. They try to help you navigate a world you don't understand. So I'll ask you again, is your life ruined? Or did I simply force you to become a better person? I had no answer. Everything she said was true. Mikey had been a jerk, a popular jerk, but a jerk nonetheless. My friendships had been shallow, based on a shared sense of arrogant humor. Missy's friendships, the ones I was building now, felt deeper, more real. Why, I finally asked, my voice barely a whisper. Why do all this? Why not just get me back with some simple prank? Because a simple prank wouldn't have taught you anything, she said. Standing up, you needed to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. In this case, they just happened to be heels. She started to walk away. Wait, I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. Is it forever? Can you change me back? April stopped but didn't turn around. The curse was tied to the phrase April Fools. It's a phrase about jokes and deception. The biggest deception of all was you pretending to be a decent person while acting like a monster. She finally turned her head, looking at me over her shoulder. A tiny, enigmatic smile played on her lips. Maybe the curse ends when the joke is no longer funny to you. Or maybe it ends when you truly, honestly, stop wanting to be changed back. And with that, she walked away, leaving me alone on the bench with her cryptic words and the rustling autumn leaves. That night, I stood in front of my mirror again. I was wearing one of my new favorite outfits, a soft burgundy sweater, dark skinny jeans, and the black ballet flats. My blonde hair was tied back in a loose ponytail. I looked nice. I looked like a normal college girl. I thought about what April had said. Did I truly want to be changed back? The answer, a month ago, would have been an unequivocal, screaming yes, but now I wasn't so sure. Did I miss the easy privilege of being a guy? Yes. Did I miss my old body, my old voice, my old name? Parts of me did, like a phantom limb that ached for something that was no longer there. But would I trade it all back? Would I trade the genuine friendships I was forming with Kayla and Vanessa? Would I trade the quiet respect I got from Zach? Would I trade this newfound empathy? This hard-won understanding of the world? Would I trade it all just to be Mikey Best, the cruel prankster king, again? The reflection in the mirror stared back at me, her blue eyes full of questions. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked strong. I didn't have the answer yet, but for the first time, I realized it was a choice. Maybe the magic wasn't about the panties or the hair or the name. Maybe the magic was about forcing me to ask the question. My name is Missy, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I think I might be okay with that. The prank was on me. But maybe, just maybe, the joke was finally starting to make sense.